Howdy everybody, and welcome back to Errmal's World, episode 53. Okay, so in today's episode, we're going to follow kind of where we left off in the last episode. Last episode we were talking about the dungeon game, and in this episode we're going to talk a little bit more about the dungeon game, but now I'm going to go behind the scenes and I'm going to try to explain the redstone. I think it's pretty interesting, some of the processing and some of the thinking that you do when you're designing redstone. And so I kind of want to go through some of what I was thinking in case you ever want to sort of mimic a dungeon in the future. You would not just make the redstone, but you maybe understand a little bit on the processes that I went through to create the redstone that I did. I have improved its front entrance. If you recall in the last episode, it was just a hole. Now it's got this sort of cavey looking, dungeony looking thing. It's got a book out here where you can sign up for the dungeon, so all the people on the server can come by and put their name in there and sign up for the next season, if you will. Alright, so we're going to come down into the dungeon. If you recall the dungeon game, there were two main mechanics. There was the relics. The relics, you put in the droppers and press the button, and that would open up the next spot of the map or help you get through the map or do something that's really fun and helps you get through. Then there were the loots. These were the collectibles. These were the things that the more you got, the more points you'd get. And those were really the goals. And you'd get better loot the deeper you got. So you wanted the relics to get deeper into the dungeon, and you wanted to get deeper into the dungeon because you'd get the best loot. One of the things I want to start with is talk about how the relic systems work. I'm going to go ahead and start over here. This is the simplest of the relic systems. There are 12 relic systems, and I built I built them all. Obviously, they're all built, but they're all a little different. They all had little nuances. But I think this one's kind of straightforward, so we'll go ahead and show this one. So if we recall what the relic does, down below here, let's see if I can drop down below here. Don't mind me not destroying anything. That's not a good place to destroy. Let's go over here. Okay. So if we remember what the relic does, you put the relic, I don't have one on me, into the dropper, and you press the button. If it's the right relic, if it's the right item, it will disappear and the magic-y thing will happen in all sorts of magical ways. If it's not the right thing, then it does not happen in all sorts of magically ways. Okay, let's get out of here. And go back up to the top. Yes, I mean you. And leave that one off. Put it there. How it knows if you got the right relic in there or not is when you look in the hopper, I have filled all of the hopper spots with the item that I want it to accept. And I have filled it with 22 of those items. That number comes to be pretty important. So if you put the right number in there, or the right relic into the dropper and press the button, it will try to move it to the hopper. If it's the right thing, it'll move in here, and this number will become 19, giving us a total of 23 honeycombs. If it's the wrong thing, it will not do anything. As you saw when I had the egg in there, nothing happened. Nothing happened. The magic about this is when you look at it, this comparator is looking at this hopper and saying, my hopper, you are a fine hopper. What do you have in you? You have 22 items. 22 items is enough to give me one tick. One strength of redstone. See, it only lights up one. This is dead. This is doing nothing. That's a boring piece of redstone. But as soon as you get to 23, and don't ask me why 23, it's a magic number, just believe me. When it gets to 23 total in here, then that'll be enough to give it 2 strength. So I put a repeater here to, give it a little bit more of an oomph, and that then pushes this piston, or causes this piston to push this block rather. Why do I want to push this block? All right, so let's start breaking down the different pieces here. This is the machine that starts the whole thing. If you put in the right relic, it starts the whole thing. Then I want to start a clock. This machine is a clock. I'll explain a little bit in a second what the clock's doing. But after so many seconds, it's going to send a signal. It's going to take a while because it's a clock. This machine with the wool with the repeater on, the 3 ticks, is a 1-pick Tulsa-inator. I think it's also called a monostable circuit. I just call it a 1-tickinator. It gives me 1 tick. No matter how big this signal is coming in, it's going to create 1 tick signal. And that's important because I'm going to send that signal back over here to this torch. So it's going to come into this block. It's going to turn this torch off. And that torch is going to be off for 1 tick, which means 1 thing in here will be able to drop. Not 2, not 3, exactly 1 thing will be able to drop. And you can see it's pointing to the chest. So after the clock, I get 1 tick to drop 1 item, which reduces this back to a 1 strength redstone pulse, not a pulse, a 1 strength redstone signal, which then pushes this back, and it will reset the timer, and it will reset the system. When the clock goes off, as you can see over here, I'm a signal, and I'm a happy signal, and I'm in here, and I'm about ready to push this because finally someone put the right relic into the dropper. This repeater, or this is not a repeater, this is an observer. How it doesn't look like it repeats, it looks like it observes. I'm staring right at you. Have you ever had a staring contest with an observer? Do you think they ever blink? I don't know, this is bedrock. We blink. Maybe the observers should blink. I'm just saying that should be a thing. The observer staring very intently at this piece of redstone. When it turns on, it's going to send a signal into the dispenser, and it's going to make the water fall, and that's going to help you get out of the honey pit, because you can just swim out of the honey pit. Yay! And then later on, when this turns off, because this clock, blah blah blah, let's reset ourselves. This goes back to a dead piece of redstone dust like it is now. It sends another, because it sends an observation every time there's a change of state. It changed again, it turned off. It sends another pulse, which then picks the water up. So therefore, what we have here is a system, and each of these little components connected by a string of redstone. Now, if I was a super smart redstone person, I might be able to condense this into like 1 block, and 1 block does everything, but I'm not quite that smart. So in my mind, how I developed this is I broke it into the different steps. All right, I need a system that only accepts the correct item. And when it gets that right item, it sends a signal that I can do something with. Check, that's what this system does. Now I need a system that starts a timer, and that's what this system does. So how is this a timer? I researched a whole bunch of timers that work in Java. I struggled to get some of those to work in Bedrock. I think there is you'll see in some of the other ones that I did, if I show you all 12, and I don't know that I will, but if I do, you'll see that I found an improvement that works just a little bit better than this one. But this one's one of the first ones I got to work in Bedrock. But what's happening here is this redstone block is stopping this hopper from losing its items. As you can see, these hoppers are pointing toward each other. Hey, how you doing? Hey, I'm doing good. Right? They're connected. When this piston pushes this redstone block over here, then that hopper will start to lose items. Those items will flow onto this side, and they'll stay over here because this redstone signal will be blocking that, or locking, if you will, this hopper. All right, so that's fine. So we got things to move. How is that a clock? So these comparators are set up to look. Is there something here? What kind of strength of the signal am I getting out of this hopper? This one's looking, what strength of signal am I getting out of this hopper? Eventually, this signal from this hopper is going to be stronger than the signal from that hopper. And when that happens, this comparator that has something come into the side and something come into the back is going to say, aha, I'm now getting a stronger signal from the back. And when that happens, I send a signal out front. That's one of the weird things comparators can do. Now that signal turns on, and it's actually a steady pulse. It'll turn red and it'll stay red because that thing is now going to always be more. This device is a 1-tick pulsinator. It takes that signal and turns it into a 1-tick pulse. Let me explain how it works. I don't know, but it works. Again, I stole this from the internets. I looked at all the Googles. I looked at all of them. And some things didn't work, some things did. I believe this is also referred to as a monostable circuit. I don't know. If I'm wrong, go ahead and yell at me in the comments, but I think that's right. I call it a 1-tick pulsinator because the point of this whole setup right here that I'm looking at is that it takes that continuous signal that's always on and makes this flash for exactly 1 tick. And again, we need it to be 1 tick because we only want 1 item to drop out of this hopper, which resets the whole system. Now, I don't want it to drop into the dropper. That doesn't make sense. So I store it off over here. So we had just our season, and somebody only used this particular relic machine 1 time. So that's why there's only 1 thing in here. I haven't cleaned it up. All right, so that's how all of these work in principle. There's different nuances. There's different things that you got to do for the different parts of it. There was different amount of space. Some of these I had to fit underneath something or above something or in between two walls because I didn't give myself a lot of room. Up here, I was able to just really spread out and really, use all the space I needed to get it in my brain to where it would work. Again, we're wasting all this space with these, 5. Could I have had that right up next to that? And could I have had, this, I have a repeater here, but maybe I could be watching that, whatever, right? I could have condensed this. Maybe I could have saved a lot of space. That's fine. I don't care. I'm happy that I was able to get it to work at all. And so this is then what it looks like. As you can see within this honeycomb area, there are 2 such things. There's another one over here that does the exact same thing, drops water. So that's how the relic works. And then I can come and clean these up and put them back into the system so that you can get those randomly when you do other things if I want, or I can leave them there because I have a bunch of them because I just have to rename objects. I'm not going to run around and show you all 12 of them, but let's go ahead and go find another one just to kind of show you that some of these I had to be really creative about how to get them to fit into the different spaces. I'm going to randomly pick on this guy here. Come on, can I go up? Can I go up? Please, please, please. Thank you. So this one, what does it want? It wants pew pew camouflage. This is for the skeleton. Yeah, that's right. This is where you put in the relic, but then the skeleton, where does the redstone go? Hello, Mr. Redstone. There it is. It's going to fire out there, and that's going to that's going to raise the blocks around the skeleton so that the skeleton can't shoot at you. But again, it's going to work on a clock. So I'm not going to spend as much time explaining this one because it's kind of all the same. We have a comparator that's giving me 1 tick. I say 1 tick, 1 strength. Pretty soon it's going to give me 2 if you put the right thing in there. And that's going to be repeated. And I'm going to take that to a clock. This is that same clock setup. When the clock finally flips the floppy, it's going to send a 1 tick pulse through the 1 tick pulsinator. And that's going to go all the way to here where it allows 1 item to drop out of it. Somewhere along here, I drop the signal. So after I repeat it, so it's okay, you got it strength of 2, but now it's strength of, I believe, 16. Is that what it's strength is? Then I have it drop down here. It goes out there and it pushes the pistons down, actually, because they're extended now. Nope, I fibbed. They are down. It'll push them up. Yes, that makes more sense in my head. But you can see how I had to try to fit these things into all these weird shapes and sizes. So they all took a little bit of, even though I figured out the mechanics of what the redstone should do, it took me, each one of these was a unique problem that needed to be solved to make it actually work. All right, so that's the relics. This little doodad setup, I put 12 of them out there. I put them all on black carpet so that it looks kind of the same. I can look at it and say, that's a relic drop off because it's black. But there's other things you can see here. You can see that there's this green wool. Now, this light green wool is the buttons you press. And remember, you want loot. So right behind here, there's a button. When you press that blackstone button, it's going to light this up. Doodly-doo. We're traveling a long ways. We're traveling it. All of these button presses are going to be moved down here to the brain. Now this one is just a little bit funner. I had a lot more fun designing this system. Because again, I have to ask myself, well, what do I want the system to do? Right? This is, basic engineering. Write down your requirements first. Well, the thing I needed it to do is I needed it to store information about what buttons you had pressed throughout the dungeon so that when you were done, you can get credit for those particular button presses. So each of these buttons just brings a line right up to this system. So there's 12 of these, 1 for each of the buttons. And I can pretend that I was running the dungeon and I put these little test buttons. So if I click this, it will be as if you click the button over there. All right, so what does each of these do? How does it store the information? And then how does it reset itself and essentially forget the information when you hit the reset button? Okay, so let's go through each of these. Well, I'm going to go through one of these and you'll know that there's just 12 of them. All right, so you hit the button, clickety-click, comes in here, and it activates this dropper. This is the button in the barn. I named it so that I can remember which one's which, because I forget stuff. All right, and it's going to push that. And the reason why I use slime is because, as you can tell, this is there's slime everywhere down here. So I always had a ton of slime on me. Anyway, so I renamed it barn. It's going to push it into this hopper. There's nothing in this hopper. So when you want to push something into it, it will always work. So whatever's in here will get pushed. Right now, this hopper is giving you 0 signal. There's 0 signal coming out of here. Well, there's no redstone dust, so there wouldn't be anything to pick up the signal, even if I had a signal, but there's nothing. But when I move one item over, I get that pulse of strength 1, and this will turn on and say, I found something. There's something going on. Now, it doesn't know what to do with that yet, and I'll get to that in a second. But that's how it's going to remember. So if I just press this button and only that one and maybe that one on the end, it'll remember those exact 3 buttons were pressed, and it will stay there until we hit the button reset. So that's how it's going to remember which buttons I pressed. Okay, so now let's say I'm upstairs and I'm done running the dungeon. I hit the reset because I want my loot. I have a button down here again that I can hit, so I don't have to run upstairs and hit it. But if I hit this button, it's going to push this piston up. Okay, well that's interesting. What does that do? That raises this wool block to be between here and there, which makes that circuit connect. So if this was on, then it would turn this block on as it's up, and then that would turn that block on, and then that would cause this system to do whatever it's going to do, and I'll tell you that in a second. But if I didn't hit that button, then when this block rises up, there's no signal, and so then nothing happens. So that's how I made that work, is that it's going to pick this up. All right, well then what do I want it to do? Okay, well what I wanted it to do, oh, let me get over here, excuse me, is I want it to, it's going to power this block, and that's going to power one random drop from this dropper. So this is your loot. This is what you got because you pressed that button. So this is the barn button. If you press the barn button, you have 1/3 chance of getting a lousy rock, and then you have, I guess, a 2/9 chance of getting a dungeon coin, a 2/9 chance of getting a honeycomb, whatever. And each of these buttons can give you a different set of rewards. So if we go, it just so happened that the buttons on this side were kind of the easy buttons, and the buttons down there were the hard ones. It just so happened to be that way. I didn't really plan it that way. So let's come down here to like a tough one. Like if you got the dragon hatchery button, right? Oh, now you're gonna get loot wands, master loot wands. You're gonna get, you know, some really good relics. These are much better relics than those other relics. And that will put one item into this hopper stream. This hopper stream is going to take all of those items, doodly-doo, down here. This little gizmo here on the pink. Oh, I got to get around there and show you the pink. All this does is it looks at this and says, is there anything in it? If there's something in it, spit it out. So that's just how I'm going to get all these items up. I could have put a dropper elevator. I thought a water elevator was funner, and that's going to put those out there, and that's what you're going to find in your chest. So you hit the button, all of a sudden the stuff comes into your chest. That's how it gets there. But it also needs to reset itself. So how does it do that? Because now if you've pressed this button, then you know this item's going to be here. So I got to send a pulse through these redstone torches that stop this hopper from losing its item, and I got to shut them all off and it doesn't have to be 1 tick pulse. Like it could be a 10 tick pulse. I don't care. You're only ever going to have one thing, so just those other ticks would be wasted, but that doesn't hurt anything. So what I did here is I have this is an observer. This observer with a little face that stares at things, it's staring at this piston. When this piston fires, it's going to see it, say, aha, state change, and it's going to make this flash. And actually, when this piston retracts, it's going to say another state change, and it's going to make it flash again. But that second flash is worthless. It doesn't matter because it'll already have dropped this and reset. And all of these will be reset. Okay, that's great. But there's like this other stuff here. What does it do? I tried to be super fancy and add one more functionality to these button presses. I thought to myself, wouldn't it be cool if someone hit all 12 buttons that they got an extra special reward? Like if you ran the dungeon and you used all the relics to get to the deepest spots, that's hard. That's hard. You should be rewarded extra if you can get all 12 buttons. So this, starting at this torch and then everything above this torch, including this torch, is an AND gate. So if you go to the Googles and say Minecraft AND gate, it'll show you what that looks like. And essentially what it's doing is saying, I need all of these to be on for the signal to happen. I need this signal and this one and this one and this one. Exactly how it works, sometimes I get confused, but I think essentially what it's saying is if all of the signals are on, So all of the torches start in like an off position. And then when all the signals turn on, yeah, see, I'm getting it wrong. I don't know. I don't know. Go research it. Google it. Go to the Googles. Say, how does an AND gate work? I put a 12 level AND gate in here. Now, I also had to do a little bit of sneakery because you should just be able to use redstone in between here instead of a repeater. But since it takes so long for this signal to travel down, my AND signal was not clicking off as an AND because the signal was just too late getting through. So I actually had to put repeaters up here as well. But it does work. It does work. So if you got all 12 of those buttons pressed, then it's going to send the signal down to here. You're going to hear a little music. Well, that just plays one note. But you're going to get a special wild card. You're going to, hey, this is a wild uncommon and a wild legendary and a wild rare. So that's extra special loot. You want those loots. And then it just puts it into the same string that everything else was in. Okay, well, those are the two big systems. Everything else kind of works off those same principles. I have 12 relic stations. I can move those if I decide, hey, I want that relic station to be somewhere else or to do something different. That's not a problem. I can move it. I can add more than 12. That shouldn't be a problem. Anything I want to do with those relics, it's kind of, the dungeon is now built and flexible. And then also the buttons. To make a new button, I can just simply stack more of these, as many as I want, all the way down the row here if I want to have more. I think 12 is a good number, so I don't think I'll add more. But I might move them. Moving them is really easy because I just change where that redstone comes from, but it would still come into the same system. So that was another thing I was really hoping to have was, yes, I made the dungeon one time, but wouldn't it be cool if I could go into that dungeon after the first season and mix it up, change what the relics do, move the buttons around so that the next time you play it, it might be a little different. It might be a little harder. It might be a little easier. I don't know. If you are interested in, making your own dungeon game, I hope that this is very useful information for you to see. Again, I made this in the Bedrock version. 1.16 is the version that I'm in. So if you saw like what TangoTek did with Decked Out and HermitCraft, and you said I can't do that because I don't play on Java and you have to be on Java to make it, that's not true. That's not true. You can make it. It's just really hard to figure things out in Bedrock because not all of the redstone behaves quite the same way. Okay, well, thank you for spending your time with me. I like showing this place off. I like showing off the redstone, and it took me a lot of time to figure out those things. So thank you, and look out for my next video. It should be coming sometime soon. Bye.